Good morning and welcome to the Moss Point Area Council for the month of February. We are always so excited for this day because it really is a communal event and a very effective, we hope, time to come together and learn and share. So we have a lot on our agenda today, but the first thing I wanted to address is that I'm clearly not Josh. So I do want you to keep Josh in your thoughts and prayers. He is currently in the hospital at Ochsner's in New Orleans and dealing with some health issues. And so when he called me or texted me on Monday to tell me he was on his way over there, you know, we're texting back and forth, and he said, I'm not sure if I'll be at area council. I said, duh, dude, that's Wednesday. No. So he's all still trying to keep everything in order, but we just need him to concentrate on getting better and praying for discernment for his doctors. So we are going to do announcements and sharing at the end because we do have a packed agenda today. Many of you have heard over the last 4 years much talk about the I-10 commercial corridor project. You might know it as the Magnificent Mile because that is how we originally, quite frankly, it just came out of an opening paragraph I wrote in a grant alluding to Chicago's Magnificent Mile. As you know, I grew up near there, and it's a very famous commercial mile on Michigan Avenue. Well, Chicago called Sue and me and wanted their name back. And they were serious. Now, I was all about, okay, let him come down to Moss Point and fight us over it, because the mayor would love for the Magnificent Mile Association to come to Moss Point. But the city attorney said no. So we will be talking about branding. So when you see Moss Point Commerce Corridor, know that engineers wrote that for their slide. And we love engineers, but creative naming isn't usually in their skill set. So we're going to talk about that. So I want to bring up Mayor Hollywood, Mayor Knight. He is a gem. So we are so thankful to have you here and have you share with us why this particular project in this particular area of the city.
Thank you so much, Paige. Thank all of you for coming. It's always good to have you here at Moss Point. Superintendent, thank you for being here today. Morris, Supervisor Morris. You know, I'm not going to talk very much because it's important for us to allow you to know what is really going on the interstate. I hesitate there because I don't know what name to call it yet. We're going to be branding that to try to help you all, get y'all to help us figure out what we ought to call that corridor up there. But like you said, this project started before I got into office. And so we just tried to really pick things up to make it really happen, because Moss Point growth is north of I-10. If we're going to grow in this city, we got to go north of I-10. And I came in reminding everybody about the opportunities that we have north of I-10. And I talked about those 4 main transportation systems that we have. We have the interstate with 63 connection. We have water. We have rail. And we have the airport. And all of that is up there on I-10. And so we want to take advantage of that. So everybody's wondering when you're going to get started. We got about $19 million for that area up there, but nobody's seen anything going on. And these gentlemen here today will tell you why it takes so long to get things done. But it's not that things are not being done. So we want to help inform you so then you can help inform your friends about what's really going on and what's going to happen in the future. Because we are sitting here on a gym, talking about building a nicer gym. That is a gym up there of possibilities and hope for Moss Point. And once we get that going, Moss Point really is going to catch on fire. With economic development, with tourism, with different culture type of activities, it's going to be amazing at what can happen once we get that infrastructure in place up there. And so that's why I'm excited about being here to help drive all of this, for the future of our city. So, Neel Schaeffer, thank you all for coming. And I'm happy that you all are here. And please help us spread the word once you hear what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to click through this slide pretty quick. I'm Steve Tweet with Neel Schaeffer. I'm the South Mississippi Area Manager, and with me to present today is Richie Ashley. He's a city engineer for Moss Point. So we're going to start with, kind of like the planning that's been going into the transportation system. It's kind of like the mayor's vision is clear. He knows this is an opportunity for Moss Point, blessed with interchange access that a lot of communities don't have. And there's an opportunity for growth there. And there's a lot of infrastructure in place, but this right here is sort of a phased approach to maybe some of the projects that are going to happen to help realize that vision. So whenever you have an overall plan like this, it takes a while to develop a plan, and then you're going to do it in pieces. And so what the mayor's done is he's identified funding sources through Restore Act and GCRF and other places to try and line those funding sources up with the projects and make these things happen. Also, Mississippi Department of Transportation has realized a need to widen I-10. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that to start with. Neel Schaeffer is doing a study for MDOT for the widening of I-10, and I'm going to talk about that. And then when I'm through with that, Richie's going to talk about the projects that Moss Point's doing and where they are. So let's go on to the next. So whenever MDOT's contemplating doing a roadway project, that all starts with long-range planning. That is the first step. So every 5 years, MDOT's going to update their long-range plan, and that they're going to go out and do traffic counts on all the existing highways that are out there and roads that are functionally classified that may be locally maintained. And they're going to go out and they're going to have community meetings, and they're going to talk to people and try and figure out, where they see growth and what their needs are. They're also going to go look at census tract data and try and figure out, where are people moving and where developments are occurring. And they're going to run travel demand models, and they're going to project out 20, 30, 40 years. And they're going to say, it looks like we're going to need to widen I-10 to 6 lane in Jackson County probably 15 years from now based on traffic projections and growth and what we're seeing. So that's the long-range plan. That's the first thing they do, and they're updating that periodically. So now you have a long-range plan. That's the first step. Okay, so once you've identified something needs to be done, like the widening of I-10, the next step is going to be to do what's called a planning and environmental linkages study. And so I've listed all the steps right here that you do prior to actually constructing something. So a lot of people will say, well, what's going on? We don't see anything. That project's funded and they're not out there turning dirt. Well, there's lots of things that have to happen behind the scenes before you can actually go to construction, and these are the different steps. So where MDOT is right now on the I-10 widening is they're doing a planning and environmental linkages study. And what that does is, and this is something that Federal Highway Administration mandates. Whenever you have federal money in a project, you're going to go through a planning and environmental linkages study. You're linking the planning, long-range planning you did to environmental documentation. And this is what's on Federal Highway Administration's website. But basically what it is it's you're kind of doing some screening to see what makes sense. You're looking at obstacles, you're looking at needs, you're developing a purpose and need statement for a project. So, and you're also getting community involvement in doing that. So let's go to the next slide, Richie. So the planning and environmental linkages study, MDOT's gonna come down here probably sometime later this year and have some community meetings and get some input on I-10 widening. Now say I-10 widening, the study we're doing goes all the way from the end of 6th lane over there around Highway 57 all the way to the Alabama state line. But the real focus of the planning and environmental linkages study is the 2 interchanges in Moss Point. But they basically know they're going to widen the inside or the outside, you look at that, and then they've already got a study on what they're going to do with the 4-mile-long bridge. Are they going to, they're probably going to widen it, replace the main spans, but what are you going to do with the interchanges in Moss Point? So we're doing traffic counts right now on all of the streets. I think we've got that. We know the ramp count, so we've got to look at the interchange configurations. The original exhibit I showed you came out of a preliminary study that was done several years ago, but this planning and environmental linkages study will look at that and come up with options. And you want to make sure whatever you do you reconfigure the existing interchanges? Do you kind of make them into one with the split diamond with one-way frontage roads? What does that need to look like? And then you're going to do all this travel demand forecasting. You're going to look at population and employment. You're going to look at existing land use. You know, you're going to look at, are there wetlands out there? You know, how much is it going to cost if we do this? And so you're going to develop several different alternatives for how to deal with the interchanges in Moss Point, and also the connecting roads like Wembley. That comes in pretty close. We'll look at that. Does that need to be a ride in, ride out, or do we need to relocate it? So MDOT is doing this study, and it's going to have all that in it. In the end of the study, you're going to know how much this project going to cost, what does it need to look like, what are the impacts going to be. So now you've got a clear idea of what you need to move the project forward to the next phase. And so the project's not funded right now. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They know they have to do it. But one thing you want to do, and the mayor knows this, before we go out trying to get restore money or GCRF money for a project, or before MDOT decides to widen Interstate 10, they've got to know how much is it going to cost and how long is it going to take to develop the project. So once this planning and environmental linkages study is done, and it'll be done this time next year, MDOT will try and secure the funding, and then they'll do a NEPA document. A NEPA document is going to, you know, that considers cultural resources like you have any historic buildings, and you're actually going to do wetland delineations, and you're going to figure out exactly what the impacts are going to be, and you're going to have some more public involvement, and once you do that, you'll have environmental clearance to move the project forward. Then once you have a NEPA document, and that process generally takes 18 to 24 months, then you'll do a survey. You'll actually go out there on the ground and measure everything and figure out the topography and where the property lines are, and you'll do some preliminary design work. You'll get your plans ready, and now you know how much right-of-way you need. So now you're going to have to go out there and buy right-of-way from people. And you know, they always try and appraise things in the before and after conditions so that they're fair with property owners. So the value of the land may only be $20,000, but you're getting so close to the house, you've damaged it. You appraise it before and after, you take the difference, and you offer the landowner that money. And then as you're going through that right-of-way process, you're going to find people who are willing to sell or they're not. If they're not, you're going to have to go to eminent domain. And you can use eminent domain to secure property. You don't really like to have to do that, but sometimes you have to. And that process takes a while. So a right-of-way process on a project like that, you're looking at another 18 to 24 months to do that. And then once you have the right-of-way acquired, of course, if there's anything that you bought within that right-of-way, like say there's a big billboard sign or some utilities or something like that, you're going to have to move that out of the way. You'll either have to have a contractor come in and demolish it, and then for utilities, you're going to have to go in there, you're going to have to move them. And these utilities are owned by private companies, so you're going to have to compensate them for that. So the utility relocation and encroachment removal can take another year. So when you add all of these things together, you're talking about years to develop an I-10 widening project. But that's just the process you go through, and there's really no way to shortcut that. So what MDOT will do with their long-range plan is say we want to widen I-10 15 years from now. But going through all of these steps to get to where we're actually going to be able to turn dirt is going to take us 6 or 8 years. So you want to try and back up your start date so that when you get to when it's needed, you're right there, ready to go. And so everybody will say, well, what's taking so long? Well, this is the process we go through on all projects to get there. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about? Does that all make sense? Okay, let's go to the next slide, Richie. Okay, so with that said, you can see the I-10 widening is project number 10 on there. And this contemplates, doing some widening I-10, but also the original study we did had one-way frontage roads on either side, and you can see those little loops underneath there. So what we were thinking is, initially you could come off at 613, and then you would get on that one-way frontage road. If you're going to go south on 63, you have to get off back at 613, get back on at 63. That's this concept. This is one of the ones we're looking at in the Pell study. But there may be some other ones. We may do some improvements to just the interchange itself and not have the one-way frontage roads. And why does that matter? Well, Moss Point's a little bit ahead of MDOT. We've already got some projects further along on that timeline, and we're ready to go. But we don't want to do anything that's going to have to be redone. So we want to know if we build these projects, if we build project 3A and 3B, which are basically frontage roads, is MDOT going to have to come out and remove those frontage roads when they do their widening? Or can we build them in such a way that when MDOT comes through and does their widening, even though we're probably 10 years out or more, the work that we did is going to be complementary to what MDOT is doing. So that's what we're working on right now. But we've got a couple of projects funded and teed up that are that we know are not going to be in conflict with what MDOT's doing. And those are the two projects that Richie's going to talk about right now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so as Steve mentioned, we came up with that master plan of projects several years ago, and we've been applying for funding for different phases of that project. And what you see on the slide, on this slide, is what funding sources have been secured for the city. And the ones highlighted, the two top restore ones, and then the GCRF ones are the two projects that are underway in the design phase. And the other ones are at different stages. As Steve mentioned, people think, you can see when the first restore was awarded in 19, well, the year the funding was available was 3 years later in 22. So, when you see it in the paper, you're like, oh, the project's awarded, and then the next year you're like, wow, nothing's happening. Well, it wasn't available for 3 years after the award. So, as Steve mentioned, things take time, and there's a process to go through. And I just want to talk about where we are with the two projects that are under design. So the first project is the Restore project, and Restore stands for Resources and Ecosystem Sustainability, Tourist Opportunities, and Revived Economies of the Gulf Coast. And we're going to just say Restore, but I am going to have a pop quiz at the end on who can repeat the name without using the acronym. That's what it stands for. I'm just refer to it as Restore. So this fund, it's administered by the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, and it's based on a bill Congress passed in July of 2012. And what that bill was, it's in response to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And the funds are dedicated, they're administrative and civil penalties related to the violations of the Clean Water Act. So basically when the oil spill, BP was obligated to pay some penalties for the environmental disaster that they caused. And those funds are basically to provide environmental and economic restoration of the Gulf Coast region. Gulf Coast region, I think it includes any state that's touching the Gulf, Alabama, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, for the most part. And these funds are applied through annually through a grant program. Typically, it's in the summer months. There's a portal you enter the project into, and you come up with cost and the schedule for the project. And Paige typically is very instrumental in helping apply for these things, and that's typically done once a year with a whole bunch of projects. You can get to the next slide. So this is where we are. These are the design for the Restore project. And so as Steve mentioned, we've already done the surveying. We've done a geotechnical investigation. You go and you check and see what the soil conditions are on the project. And then we come up with a preliminary roadway alignment based off of that. And so what you see here, and I don't have a pointer, but you see starting at north is to the left on the exhibit. And so you see the Cracker Barrel is the top left corner of the exhibit. And so we're basically going to make a roadway connecting Good Hope to Elder Ferry to allow better movements in the area. Right now, the truck stop is very problematic, the pilot truck stop, and trucks they're going out onto Highway 63 and they're blocking traffic for a lot of, I'm sure you all have experienced it at some point if you've been in that area. And so we're going to do some lane configuration changes along Amico to accommodate that truck stop. We also have an option to maybe give the truck stop an exit to the west, and they would exit from the west end of their parking lot to Elder Ferry, and it would get them completely off of Amico, but we haven't been able to nail that down yet. But that's one of the options we're looking at. Also, Amico and Jamestown are now, they're both T intersections, and we're going to align those to make the movements a lot cleaner in that area. And the best way to do that, we felt, was with this roundabout. And so we've implemented that, and Elder Ferry is currently about an 18-foot wide roadway, so you got roughly about 2 9-foot lanes. We'd like that to be at least 11, 12, maybe even, and so we're upgrading that to an 11-foot lane, and we're also going to accommodate all truck movements with the roundabout. And you could have a truck go all the way through the new Good Hope Street connection, and he could make his way all the way around the roundabout, and it accommodates large trucks. And just a little bit about the project, this asphalt pavement, like I said, it accommodates all truck movements. We are putting in new drainage and utilities. We've been in coordination with the city's public works, and we don't want to build a new roadway over old utilities, and so we're gonna upgrade the water, sewer, and gas lines, and of course we're gonna implement some drainage improvements into the project. The schedule I have shown there. The schedule's pretty aggressive. Just keep in mind, as Steve mentioned, right now we're in that property acquisition phase, so we've laid out the footprint of the project. And we try to widen to one side, so we have to deal with less property owners, and we're able to do that. And so right now we're in that phase of our surveyors preparing the easements and documents, and we're going to present that to the property owners and get appraisals and stuff like that. So the schedule's really aggressive, and we're exploring opportunities to maybe move this project along a little bit faster. We maybe could split it up into phases. If one phase goes if the right-of-way acquisition and environmental portions are less impactful for one phase, we may end up doing that. Just keep that in mind. You can go to the next slide. So that's the Restore project. The next fund is the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund. This one's a lot easier. The acronym's a lot easier to remember than the Restore. But this one's administered by the Mississippi Development Authority, MDA. And this fund was established in 2018, and it's also in response to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And these are due to economic damages for the spill, and it's a settlement basically with the lawsuits and all that due to the oil spill. So both of these projects are funded by projects that are projects to accommodate the funds acquired from the oil spill disaster. But this is the GCRF is a little different than Restore. These projects they have to have an economic development component, and as Paige will tell you, there's a long checklist you have to go through on the application, and I think it's about 15 items, and they want you to specify how you're going to accommodate each one of those items with the project. And this one's also applied for annually through a grant program, typically around the summer months. Move to the next slide, Steve. Yeah, this one we've, as Steve mentioned, with the Pell study going on, we've been trying to pin down the exact configuration, but as you can see, this is the La Quinta Inn. North is straight up on this exhibit, and we're sort of mirroring what we're doing on the south side. The frontage road ends there at La Quinta, and so we're extending that over and connecting to Elder Ferry. And of course, Elder Ferry is also, Elder Ferry used to go straight through before the interstate, so it's also 18-foot wide. So we're upgrading that with a new 11-foot wide lane configuration with curb and gutter. And we're also going to accommodate truck movements, and we're improving utilities on this project as well. The utilities are old and haven't been upgraded in quite a number of years. And schedule-wise on this one, we've done this. I put in bold where we are. We've done surveying. We've done the geotechnical investigation. We're really close to pinning down the alignment of the project. And once we do that, we'll start the preliminary design work. We'll get the right-of-way from that footprint, and we'll move forward with the property acquisition phase as we are where we are on the Restore project. You got the next project, Steve? Yeah, this is just that overall map, and Steve spoke of this earlier. This was sort of that wish list I was mentioning that was prepared years ago for all potential projects in the I-10 area. With the traffic study we performed years ago, it identified the Amico improvements, and so that's the one we're focusing on now. And we're trying to pin down, in coordination with the Pell study, where we're going west of Elder Ferry. So right now we're 1A, B, C, and D, that's the Restore project, and 2A and 2B, that's the GCRF project. And so yeah, we're gonna move forward to the west and see what other project is gonna be on the hot list after those are complete. You know, to the next slide, Stephen. And so I just want to list some of the funding opportunities that the city is trying to get some funding through these different sources. As I mentioned, Restore, that's one we apply for every year, and GCRF. There's the RAISE grant that we're currently applying for a RAISE grant. The city's applied for a RAISE grant probably 3 or 4 times over the years. Those are pretty competitive. Really tough to get, but you won't get it if you don't apply for it. So we're trying. There's also Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant that's coming out, I think, in about 2 or 3 months. And then through our local MPO, it's GRPC, another acronym. But they basically do transportation planning for the area, and they have grants available through, or funding available through them and the Department of Transportation at HWA, which we're always looking into. And then, as I mentioned, MDOT, and there may be others, like we could use city funds. I know the mayor's squinting his eyes at me when I say that, but there may at some point be funds available, local funds to do these projects. And there's also, through the legislature, some opportunities available as well. And if anybody have any questions or comments you'd like to make to myself or Steve? All right, well, thank you all for coming this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present the project, Steve.
Thank you, too.